Steven Spielberg, I find quite confused in his recollection of me.
He's directed more A-list talent than any filmmaker alive, but Steven Spielberg has a secret list. 7 actors who crossed lines so unforgivable, he quietly erased them from Hollywood's most powerful Rolodex. What they did will shock you. You think you know Steven Spielberg, the gentle giant of cinema, the man who gave us E.T., Jaws, and Jurassic Park. But behind that grandfatherly smile lies one of Hollywood's most unforgiving memories. See, Spielberg doesn't just make movies, he builds families. Tom Hanks calls him before making any major career decision. Harrison Ford trusts him with his legacy. But for every actor who earned his loyalty, there are others who learned the hard way that crossing Steven Spielberg means career exile. These aren't just creative differences or artistic disagreements. These are the performers who violated his sacred code to show up prepared, respect the process, and never, ever put your ego above the story. What you're about to discover are the 7 actors who made Spielberg's private blacklist. Some are legends, some are rising stars who fell from grace. All of them learned that in Hollywood, burning bridges with the wrong director can end everything. Number 7. Shia LaBeouf, the ungrateful protege. Steven Spielberg discovered Shia LaBeouf when he was just another struggling actor from Disney Channel. He cast him as the lead in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, essentially handing him the keys to one of cinema's most beloved franchises. LaBeouf should have been grateful. Instead, he became Hollywood's most spectacular case of biting the hand that feeds you. The problem started during filming in 2007. Crew members reported that LaBeouf would constantly question Spielberg's direction, often in front of the entire cast. He'd suggest improvements to scenes, challenge the legendary director's vision, and worst of all, he'd do it with the arrogance of someone who'd forgotten he was replaceable. But Spielberg, ever the professional, tolerated it. He saw potential in the young actor and believed in nurturing talent, even difficult talent. Then came 2010, and LaBeouf committed the ultimate sin. In an interview with the Los Angeles Times, he publicly trashed the film that had made him a star. "I feel like I dropped the ball on the legacy that people loved and cherished," he said. But then he went further. "You can blame it on the writer and you can blame it on Steven." Read that again. He blamed Steven Spielberg, the man who'd given him everything, for the film's reception. The response was swift and silent. LaBeouf was quietly removed from all future Spielberg projects. No public statements, no drama, just the kind of professional exile that speaks louder than any press release. When asked about difficult actors in a 2012 interview, Spielberg said something that insiders knew was aimed directly at LaBeouf. "Gratitude is the foundation of all professional relationships. Without it, talent becomes noise." LaBeouf's career never recovered from losing Spielberg's protection. Today, he's known more for his erratic behavior than his acting. A cautionary tale about what happens when you bite the hand that made you a star. Number 6. Sean Bean, the method actor who went too far. Sean Bean is a respected actor known for his intense performances and tragic character deaths. But his brief encounter with Spielberg during the development of Saving Private Ryan revealed why sometimes method acting can go too far. In 1997, Bean was originally cast as Private Reiben, the cynical soldier who questions the mission to save Private Ryan. It should have been a career-defining role in what would become one of the greatest war films ever made. But Bean's approach to the character created problems from day one. He insisted on staying in character between takes, maintaining the psychological state of a traumatized World War II soldier. While this might sound professional, it created an atmosphere of tension that affected the entire cast. Tom Hanks later described the experience as walking on eggshells. Bean would refuse to break character for meals, for script discussions, even for safety briefings about the complex battle sequences they were filming. The breaking point came during rehearsals for the famous Omaha beach landing. Bean, fully immersed in his character's trauma, had what witnesses described as a complete psychological breakdown. He began screaming about the horrors of war, not as an acting exercise, but as if he was genuinely experiencing combat stress. Production shut down for 2 days while Spielberg decided how to handle the situation. The director, who values collaboration and a positive working environment above all else, made a difficult decision. Bean was quietly replaced by Edward Burns, who brought the same intensity to the role without the psychological chaos. Spielberg never publicly discussed what happened, but crew members from the film remember his words. "I need actors who can find truth without losing themselves. Some people can't tell the difference." Bean's career continued, but he never worked with Spielberg again, a reminder that even the most dedicated method acting has limits. Number 5. Megan Fox, the rising star who forgot her place. Before she became a tabloid fixture, Megan Fox was a rising star with everything going for her. Michael Bay had cast her as the female lead in Transformers, a Spielberg-produced franchise that should have launched her into the A-list. Instead, she became a case study in how to destroy your career with your mouth. The problem started during promotion for the first Transformers film in 2007. Fox, who was just 21, began making increasingly outrageous statements to the press. She compared working on action films to being in a war zone and complained about the physical demands of the role. Spielberg, who was executive producer on the franchise, initially dismissed these comments as youthful inexperience. He'd seen young actors struggle with sudden fame before. But then came the interview that ended everything. In a 2009 Wonderland magazine interview, Fox compared director Michael Bay to Hitler. "He's like Napoleon, and he wants to create this insane, infamous madman reputation," she said. "He wants to be like Hitler on his sets, and he is." The Hitler comparison was bad enough, but what made it unforgivable was that she was attacking Bay while promoting a Spielberg-produced film. In Hollywood's hierarchy, that was like insulting the boss's son at a family dinner. Spielberg's response was immediate and decisive. According to multiple industry sources, he personally called the studio and demanded Fox be removed from Transformers: Dark of the Moon. The official story was that Fox had outgrown the franchise. The reality was that she'd been fired by one of the most powerful men in Hollywood. Bay later confirmed the story, telling GQ magazine, "Steven said, 'Fire her, right now.'" Fox's career never recovered. She went from potential A-lister to direct-to-video actress almost overnight. A reminder that in Hollywood, some bridges once burned can never be rebuilt. Number 4. Edward Norton, the perfectionist who couldn't compromise. Edward Norton is widely regarded as one of the finest actors of his generation. His performances in Fight Club, American History X, and Primal Fear showcase a talent that few can match. But his brief collaboration with Spielberg on Munich revealed why perfectionism can become a curse. In 2005, Norton was cast in a supporting role in Munich, Spielberg's complex thriller about the Israeli response to the 1972 Olympics massacre. It should have been the beginning of a beautiful creative partnership between two perfectionists who shared a love of detailed storytelling. Instead, it became a masterclass in incompatible working styles. Norton's approach to every role is exhaustive. He researches every detail, questions every line, and wants to understand every motivation. While this dedication is admirable, it can also be exhausting for directors who need to maintain momentum on complex productions. The problem started in pre-production. Norton would arrive at script meetings with pages of notes, suggestions for character changes, and detailed analyses of historical accuracy. What should have been collaborative discussions became lengthy debates about every aspect of the story. Spielberg, who values preparation but also trusts his instincts, found Norton's approach suffocating. "Edward wants to understand every molecule of his character," he later told a close friend. "Sometimes you need actors who can find truth in the moment, not just in research." The breaking point came during filming of a crucial scene where Norton's character receives devastating news. Norton insisted on multiple takes to explore different emotional approaches, turning what was scheduled as a half-day shoot into a 3-day psychological exploration. Other actors began to complain. The production fell behind schedule. Spielberg, who prides himself on efficient filmmaking, was forced to make a choice between artistic exploration and practical filmmaking. He chose practicality. Norton completed his role in Munich, but the experience left both men frustrated. Despite Norton's acclaimed performance, Spielberg never worked with him again. "Some actors need to understand everything," Spielberg reflected years later. "Others trust the process. I prefer working with the second kind." Number 3. Julia Roberts, the pretty woman who wasn't so pretty. The year was 1991, and Steven Spielberg was developing Hook, his ambitious reimagining of Peter Pan. He needed a Tinkerbell who could bring magic and mischief to the screen. Julia Roberts, fresh off her Pretty Woman success and commanding $7 million for the role, seemed perfect. What followed was one of the most toxic actor-director relationships in Spielberg's career. Roberts arrived on the Hook set with an attitude that stunned even veteran crew members. According to multiple sources, she treated the elaborate flying sequences as beneath her, complained constantly about the technical demands of playing a fairy, and showed little interest in the collaborative process that Spielberg treasures. But the real problem wasn't her diva behavior. It was her complete lack of preparation for a role she was being paid a fortune to play. Dustin Hoffman, who played Captain Hook, later described the atmosphere as tense. Robin Williams, ever the peacemaker, spent more time mediating between Roberts and Spielberg than focusing on his own performance as Peter Pan. The breaking point came during a particularly complex scene where Tinkerbell confronts Captain Hook. The sequence required precise timing, emotional depth, and technical precision. Roberts, unprepared and frustrated, allegedly told Spielberg his direction was confusing and unhelpful in front of the entire cast and crew. For a director who had never been spoken to so dismissively, it was a shocking moment. The film was completed, but the relationship was irreparably damaged. Despite Roberts becoming one of Hollywood's biggest stars over the next decade, she never received another call from the director who had once seen her as his Tinkerbell. When asked about the experience years later, Spielberg was diplomatically brutal. "Some actors bring light to a set, others bring shadows. I've learned to work only in the light." Roberts, for her part, has never publicly discussed the Hook experience in detail, but her absence from Spielberg's subsequent films speaks volumes about bridges burned and trust broken. Number 2, Marlon Brando, the fallen god. This is the story of a collaboration that broke Steven Spielberg's heart. Marlon Brando was Spielberg's hero, the man who revolutionized screen acting with A Streetcar Named Desire and On the Waterfront. When the opportunity arose to work with his idol on Apocalypse Now in the late 1970s, Spielberg was thrilled. What he discovered was that his hero had become a shadow of his former self. Brando arrived on Francis Ford Coppola's set, overweight, unprepared, and seemingly uninterested in the collaborative process that had once made him great. But it was his behavior toward the young Spielberg, who was visiting the set as an observer, that left a lasting impression. According to witnesses, Brando treated Spielberg with dismissive condescension, referring to him as the kid who makes movies about sharks. When Spielberg tried to engage him in conversation about acting technique, Brando cut him off with, "You wouldn't understand. You make popcorn movies." The comment devastated Spielberg, who had idolized Brando since film school. But the real revelation came when Spielberg watched Brando work. The man who had once been the most naturalistic actor in cinema was now reading his lines off cue cards taped to other actors' foreheads. He had become a parody of his former greatness. Years later, when Spielberg had the power to cast anyone he wanted, Brando's representatives reached out about potential collaborations. The answer was always no. "I learned that sometimes your heroes disappoint you," Spielberg reflected in a rare, candid moment. "And when they do, it's better to preserve the memory than create new disappointments." Brando died in 2004, having never worked with the director who had once worshipped him. A reminder that talent without respect for the craft becomes just another form of waste. Number 1. Katherine Heigl, the TV star who forgot television made her. The most shocking name on this list isn't a method actor or a legendary diva. It's Katherine Heigl, and her brief encounter with Steven Spielberg during the casting process for Lincoln reveals why attitude matters more than talent. In 2011, Heigl was at the height of her Grey's Anatomy fame and looking to transition into serious dramatic films. When her representatives learned that Spielberg was casting Lincoln, they aggressively pursued a meeting for the role of Mary Todd Lincoln. It should have been a dream opportunity, working with America's greatest director on a prestige historical drama. Instead, it became a masterclass in how to destroy your reputation in a single meeting. According to sources present at the audition, Heigl arrived 45 minutes late without apology. When Spielberg began explaining his vision for the film, she interrupted to suggest changes to Mary Todd Lincoln's character arc, despite having no background in Civil War history. But the moment that ended, everything came when Spielberg asked about her preparation for the role. Heigl reportedly said, "I don't really do research. I prefer to bring my own interpretation to historical characters." The room went silent. Spielberg, who had spent years researching every detail of Lincoln's presidency, was stunned by such casual dismissal of historical accuracy. The meeting ended quickly. Heigl never heard back. Sally Field was cast as Mary Todd Lincoln and won an Oscar nomination for her meticulously researched performance. But the story doesn't end there. Word of Heigl's audition spread through Hollywood's tight-knit community. Her reputation for being difficult, which had already been growing due to her public criticism of Grey's Anatomy's writing, was cemented. Within 2 years, she was off television and struggling to find film roles. Her career never recovered from the perception that she was ungrateful and unprofessional. Spielberg never publicly discussed the audition, but his casting choices spoke volumes. He continued to work with actors who shared his respect for preparation, research, and collaborative storytelling. Heigl's fall from grace serves as a reminder that in Hollywood, reputation is everything. And once you're known as difficult to work with, even talent can't save you. Steven Spielberg has worked with hundreds of actors across 5 decades of filmmaking. He's launched careers, created legends, and built some of the most enduring collaborations in cinema history. But these 7 names represent something else entirely. They're reminders that talent alone isn't enough. That ego can destroy opportunity. That respect for the craft, the crew, and the story isn't optional. It's everything. Spielberg doesn't talk about these experiences publicly. He doesn't need to. His silence speaks louder than any interview ever could. Because when you're Steven Spielberg, you don't need to work with difficult people. You just need to work with the right people. And sometimes the most powerful thing a director can do is simply not call back. In a town built on relationships, burning bridges with the wrong person can end everything. These 7 actors learn that lesson the hard way. Their stories serve as cautionary tales for anyone who thinks fame makes them untouchable. Because in Hollywood, there's always someone more talented, more professional, and more grateful waiting for their chance. And Steven Spielberg has never had trouble finding them. What shocked you most about these stories? Which actor's downfall surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want more behind-the-scenes Hollywood secrets that the industry doesn't want you to know, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We're just getting started pulling back the curtain on the real stories behind the magic.